Welcome in, Packers. It's time for a review and breakdown of the new Pokemon Auto Chess patch 5.9 New Talents. Now, this was a massive patch. It brought many new and exciting changes to really shake up the meta. This is probably the most influential patch we've seen since the introduction of PP Overflow in patch 5.4. Maybe even since shiny items and amorphous synergy were added in patch 5.2. With that in mind, I felt that it was important to make a video highlighting the most impactful changes that came with the new patch, such as the new ranking system, TMs and HMs, the PvE gold changes, and the mega exodus of ultra units that we've all grown so accustomed to. I'll review what the changes are, then break down the impact these changes will have on the current and future state of the game. And finally, I'll create a quick tier list live with my prediction of how the various synergies will perform this patch. So let's get into it. We'll start off hot by taking a look at the big shakeup in the Ultra Pool. First and foremost, all of the megas are gone forever. Well, really just temporarily until we get a good idea for implementing Mega Stones and Mega Evolutions, but for now they're gone. The Mega Evolutions or the 3-star rarity of these families are all temporarily removed, so now you'll see Snover as a Epic Regional, which is like the purple 4-cost. Swablu line, or Altaria, is now an Epic Additional as well. Baneri line is now an Uncommon Regional, or the green 2-cost. Shuckled line is now an Epic and Additional. Numal line is now an Epic Regional. Electric line is now a Rare Additional with a new ability, Thunder Fangs. And the Onyx line is now an Epic Additional as well. But with the removal of these units from the Ultra Pool, we do get a fun new batch of super powerful units. So let's take a look at those. So for the familiar units that got moved to Ultras, we first have the Baxcalibur line, which received a massive buff to both its ability and its stats. Then we have the Shinx line. It's now an Ultra. It gained Light Synergy, as well as it got a slightly nerfed version of Manetric's old ability. And then also we have Rhyhorn now, with the brand new ability Horn Drill, and of course massive stat buff. And for the truly new units, we have Talonflame, the ranged fire flying Burb, and then we also got the Timber line, the fighting human, which comes with his best friend and the fan favorite, the Pillar. And then otherwise we kept our same Ultras with some slight adjustments, such as Blissey line gaining Fairy Synergy, Gengar getting an ability change, and of course there's still Drizzle. But yeah, so as far as the new Ultras go, that pretty much covers the changes on paper, but you might be wondering, we got all these new units, what does that mean for me? What comps should I play? What comps should I avoid? So let's break it down. Let's start with the comps that are hurting the most. First off, losing Shuckled line is a huge hit to Artificial and a pretty large hit to Ghost. This now means Artificial only has 3 units in the main pool, so it will be extremely additional pick reliant. Ghost will also need to keep an eye on additional picks throughout the game if you actually want to end up with a strong enough board to win. And now, losing Altaria hurts quite a few compositions, most notably Sound and Fairy, but it was also a key unit in making strong in-game boards for both normal and dragon comps. Then losing Lopunny is also a major hit to normal this patch. It hurts fighting comps as well, but at least they gained a new fighting human unit to kind of make up for it. Losing Abomasnow is a solid blow to most grass comps, and a major blow to any grass monster builds. But hey, at least they still have Sawattle. And in my opinion, losing Steelix was a fairly large hit to steel comps. Some players will disagree with this, but I do believe that having at least one half-decent tank on a bursty DPS composition was still pretty important to winning a lot of matchups. And now for the comps that are loving these changes. So firstly, gaining Talonflame is a massive buff to both fire and flying boards. Having a ranged DPS unit with a high damage ability is exactly what fire needed at Ultra. And this also just makes flying that much scarier to face, considering they haven't even had an Ultra yet, and they've still been performing quite well. Then the Baxcalibur line offers a lot when it comes to late game boards. It's being a strong Dragon Ice unit that helps to counter the very popular AP meta we found ourselves in. Although Altaria was a stronger unit for most final Dragon boards, not having to evolve the Ultra to get value is still a big bonus, and that can make a big difference if you're low HP and trying to get a late game spike with playing Dragon. And then also gaining a team-wide special defense from Dragon doubling Ice Synergy is just a cherry on top. I would expect to see Baxcalibur line in almost any board that splashes Dragon 3 this patch. Then the Rhyperior line replacing Steelix is actually a huge buff to any ground or rock board that you can cook up. It's a better unit that deals a ton of damage and has monster synergy to scale out of control. Be very wary whenever you see an opponent playing this unit in your lobby. Luxray is the new Manetric and fits quite nicely, but this time it gets light synergy to go with it. Major buff to any light, electric, or field teams this patch. And Timberline is an okay replacement for low punny and fighting, but its main impact is the human synergy. The new human rework plus a fighting human ultra has allowed human to quickly become a fan favorite synergy at the start of the patch. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, everyone's favorite part of Conkeldurr is the pillar. Now there were quite a lot of other balance changes for units who are either not in ultra tier or no longer in ultra tier, but rather than reading through all those, I'm just gonna touch on the ones that look to be the most impactful. So first off, we have Shuckled change. Now even though removing it from the guaranteed ultra pool does hurt artificial, the new ability is actually really cool, and I think a pretty large buff to Shuppet overall. So now instead of taking an item from the original Shuppet, you steal a random item from the target, and this offers a lot of interesting counterplay options, especially when it comes to shiny games like with Dynamax bands. So yeah, I like this change a lot. Then they changed Nightmare for Ghastly. Now instead of silencing, you inflict fatigue, and instead of dealing damage to a unit that suffers from flinch, silence, or sleep, it only deals damage to units taking a Ghost Curse. So now this feels like you have to have at least Ghost 2 active to really get much value. Fatigue is a really cool status, I'm glad it was implemented, but versus some boards, this honestly feels really bad compared to Team-Wide Silence. I know this is something a lot of people complained about when it comes to team-wide silence. Some people think it's toxic, and I understand. But at the same time, at this point, you just have zero counterplay against water in terms of silencing them. So from that perspective, I don't exactly care for this change too much, but we'll see how it goes. Now Houndour is part of the Mega Exodus. It's now an Epic Additional instead of in the main pool, and Mega Houndoom is gone. It also got a nice HP buff. Cobalion, Virizion, and Keldeo are all now legendary. All three of them used to be uniques, and then they got big stat buffs. So this is really cool and beefs up the fighting pool at the legendary mark. Florges line no longer has sound type. Received some pretty big buffs, but it's no longer sound type. Now this was the ignition in the semi-truck that was a soundboard. So it's really hard to get that truck started. Yeah, we'll see how sound performs this patch. I don't think it's looking good. Additionally with sound, Jirachi now gains sound typing, and revert Doom Desire PP from 5.6 from 100 to 60 PP if the target is KO'd. So I think this will be pretty interesting for sound, but overall I do think it's probably a bit of a nerf since you can't guarantee Meloetta anymore. This can also be a slight hit to fighting sometimes, since you can't get that guaranteed out of a sound portal if you miss your fighting one. Now Alolan Marowak is now tier 2 and adjusted stats to match Marowak, so you no longer get the free tier 3 epic additional just by being in the region. Reshiram, Kyurem, and Zekrom damage delay went from 1 second to 250 milliseconds. They didn't nerf the damage output, but that helps a lot, and a lot of people are giving really positive feedback saying that they find more value with the units now. New ability for Sphealine, Ice Ball. Buff the defense. Basically this is a special defense mill tank. Some people like to reroll for it and use it as their carry. I don't think that's a very good strategy, but it's fun, you know, why not? And it is definitely better. It actually made this unit relevant, which is cool. Changed Heavy Slim Aggron. Base damage is increased, but the HP difference damage scaling went from 1 to 1/2. So this is actually a pretty big change. This should help with the issues of Aggron scaling out of control with monster synergy, especially early. So hopefully that won't be as bad. Nerf Morpeko. Aura will cool down from 100 milliseconds to 200 milliseconds. Some people think this change means nothing, but the original buff that made Morpeko go from complete trash to really broken was going from 500 milliseconds or half a second to 100 milliseconds. So don't doubt on what a tenth of a second of casting time delay means. This does double its casting time. I think it'll still be really good, but I do think this change helps. Nerf Fiery Wrath from Galarian Moltres went from 40 to 33. This, in addition with the dark nerfs, should be quite helpful because that unit was absurd. It would one-shot boards with the crit cast last patch. Nerf Galar Cursola. That was the same stats as regular Cursola. Nerf Cursola HP 300 to 200, and adjusted Curse duration from 8.4 to 8.53 seconds. So it seems like Cursola is getting hit quite a lot this patch, a lot of nerfs. Bounce Sweet Line is getting a new ability called Trope Kick. This does look like it's still a pretty good ability, but it definitely seems like a nerf, I believe. That old ability was just so insane. Electabuzz is no longer light typing, because Shinx gained that at Ultra, but it did get some compensation buffs. So you win some, you lose some. I think it's a good change, definitely needed with the Shinx change. This is also a slight nerf to Artificial, because there were times where you can make Artie light comps that were quite nice. Change Future Sight of Gardevoir. Damage is dealt now after 2 seconds of casting. a slight PP reduction. This change has felt quite a lot. If you're playing Psychic boards and you're used to old Gardevoir queries, you will notice very quickly it does not feel like nearly the same damage output. Gorbis is now Fossil Water Aquatic instead of Fossil Water Psychic. This is a good change. It does hurt a little bit of the Water Psychic boards, but as you saw from my first video of the patch, Water Psychic is still very much alive if you get the other 2 units for it and the right stones. And now Chimchar is available in both fire and fighting regions, so this has been another fan favorite, especially with the, fighting human popularity. The unit itself isn't necessarily anything crazy in my opinion, but monkey, so. Okay, and for the other new units of the patch, we got Terrakion, the legendary rock fighting unit. We got the Mandibuzz line, which is a rare additional pick. It's dark flying. Then we got Malamar. It's an epic additional that is dark psychic aquatic. So this will pair nicely with your Lugia, or Shadow Lugia. And then we got Hisuian Electrode. It's an uncommon regional electric grass fossil. Gotta love getting a fossil unit, especially a grass fossil one. And then we have Elegem line, which is a rare additional psychic monster light. So this will pair nicely with a lot of things, especially Mewtwo. But it's also just got a really cool ability that I think will have some really cool implications, especially in certain matchups like versus Ice, as a psychic team, things like that, that can help you beat some counter matchups. So that's an interesting one to look out for. And then last but certainly not least, we have Incineroar, which is now an epic main pool unit, replacing Houndoom, and it's now a Fire Dark Field unit. So big ups for both Fire Field and Dark Field, which Dark Field isn't something you see often, but could have some interesting implications. Alright, moving on to the changes to synergies. So starting off hot with the human rework. Healing is now only for humans, not the allies, but the healing numbers were buffed quite a bit, and human 2 and 4 now give a random TM, and human 6 gives a random HM. Cover those a bit in a second, but basically they just let you change the ability of one of your human units. Now, Dark got some pretty big nerfs here. Dark crit damage went from 60, 80, 100% to 30, 40, 50, basically cut in half, which is very much deserved, so now you actually need to make a Grazer Fang to play Dark. Buff Electric 9, triple attacks, dealing 20 special damage instead of 10. I think Electric 6 is probably still where it's at, but Electric 9 is super fun to hit. Nerf Ghost 2, defense and special defense debuff from 5 to 2. Thank you. Ghost 2 was insanely OP. 2 defense and special defense drop, that's unavoidable, is still super good. Plus flinch if no anti-CC, but 5 was just super oppressive because that's most units, like all of their defense. Nerf Ghost 4, attack debuff from 30 to 25%, perfect. Still going to be really strong, but that is a nice change. I love to see Ghost taking a little bit of hit. Baby Egg Chance and Golden Egg Chance are now split into 2 separate values. Thank you. So before, people were using Baby 3 to increase their odds of getting shiny items at Baby 7, and it was super toxic, letting people get 2 to 4 shiny items per game, like without losing much HP. And then also nerf Baby 3. Baby Egg Chance goes from 10 to 8%, and Egg Hatch Time goes from 3 to 5 rounds. Thank you. Baby was incredibly OP the last couple patches and was super annoying to face. There were times you would face 4 players going Baby before Gyarados, and all of them would average 2 hatches apiece. It was absurd. So now we don't have to deal with that anymore. Very welcome change. Thank you, Kelvin and Curry. Alright, changes to items. Introducing the technical machines, or TMs, and hidden machines, HMs, that allow the changing the ability of human Pokemon. I'm not going to go over all these. There are a few interesting ones, especially for some niche tech spots that could be cool. I do think they give a little bit of viability to, running human synergy. And obviously they bring a fun new aspect to the game. So they're really cool in that regard. It'll be a fun thing to test. I don't think they're necessarily OP. I don't think they're going to put human at S tier, but they are fun and they're super cool. So now also removed Amulet Coin base stats, which is a small nerf to Amulet Coin, but takes away 3 attack and some special defense. Much needed change. Amulet Coin, way too good. At least now if you're choosing it as an item, you don't get the actual stats to go with it. So you do have to make a pure trade-off of losing stats and an item in order to gain economy. Also, Tiny Mushroom now reduces health by 50% only if the holder is cloned. That's a good change. A little bit niche since it's artificial item. Pokemons can now hold artificial items and shiny stones even if it gives them one of their existing synergies. Okay, that's cool. Max Revive is now consumed on use. Stats are lost after after resurrection. Perfect. Amazing. Item effects are now updated when items are gained or lost in battle. Amazing. This is awesome. Stats and statuses are now lost when items are removed, so you lose the stats and the statuses. So like a big problem I had with this was like if you use knockoff with Sableye onto a unit holding a Fluffy Tail, let's say you're playing Ghost. Well, even though you knock off the Fluffy Tail item, they kept the Rune Protect and they would never get affected by the Ghost curses. So anyways, this is no longer an issue. Synergy effects and types are now added and removed accordingly. Stat increases from the synergy of an item are gained when added but not lost when removed. Stat increases from the synergy of an item gained when added but not. Okay, yeah, perfect. So it's like artificial stats, stuff like that. Change golden bottle cap. Jackpot now doubles the amount of gold earned during this round instead of giving 5 gold. Show the stacks next to the item icon. So good, it shows stacks like an amulet coin now, but it doubles the amount of gold. So if you have a good round where you get 7 gold or something and then kill the last one, then you get 14. But if you have a bad round where you only get like 1 or 2 kills, then you get less than the 5. So this is a cool change, a little bit more gambly. I like it. Now for the gameplay changes. We have a new status. It's called Blinded. Basically, it reduces the accuracy of basic attacks by 50%. Replaces the existing smoke effect that was not considered a status. It's basically increased dodge. Now it's a status. And then now we have a new ranking system. There's 12 different ranks, each with a different icon by Joinity. So thank you, Joinity. Now you start at Level Ball, and basically you get a new rank every 50 elo. Net, Safari, Love, Premium, Quick, Pokeball, Super Ball, up to Ultra Ball at 1400 elo. And then your next rank is Master Ball at 1500 elo. And then finally Beast Ball at 1700 elo, which currently is just Crabhammer. He gets a tier all to himself. Until Obscuros jumps up there for a week or two. And then ranked matches are now created for these groups, where you can do like 1100 plus, or less than 1100, 1100 to 1249, 1250 to 1399, and greater than 1400. So this helps a lot of your higher rated players actually find ranked matches, and also gives a little bit of a broader scale to like where the skill gap is and who should actually be playing each other. So this is a good change. It's also just neat, and it gives people something more to compete for and grind for. Here's another big change that I think a lot of people sleep on. PvE rounds no longer give additional income based on victory and defeat streaks. So this means that Gyarados, if you went open for it, you no longer get that bonus 5 gold. Or if you had a perfect win streak, you no longer get that bonus 5 gold. Now, this isn't a huge change, obviously, because you still get it on your PvE rounds if you continue to streak. But over the course of a 25 to 30 round game, this is going to be 20 to 30 gold difference in terms of how much you produce if you have a perfect streak versus not. So I do think this is a good change. I think it is a slight hit to some lose streak strategies, but it is a big hit to a lot of win streak strategies. So this is quite nice. And then last but certainly not least, they are punishing the intentional leavers. So now if you leave a game early, you will get penalties. Intentional disconnections before stage 6 are no longer protected against elo loss. So if you were going into a game saying, oh, I had a bad start, let me just leave and play a new one, now you're going to lose elo. So you should not do that. And then if you disconnect unintentionally, you won't be punished, but you won't be able to join a new game within the next 5 minutes. So if you try to circumvent it, you at least have to sit there and wait for a little bit. Alright, so that covers the vast majority of the major changes that came with this patch. I know it did run a little bit long, so I'm sorry about that, but it was a really large patch. And honestly, there's still dozens of buffs and nerfs and adjustments that we didn't even cover. So if you do want to check out the full changelog, the link to the Discord will be in the description. But now that we know the changes, let's go ahead and get into the part of the video that most of you probably just skipped straight to. Let's do the tier list. Alrighty, it is time to get into the tier list. This will be a fun one. We've seen a few tier lists hit the Discord already. They have some very different opinions, both from each other and myself. So it is quite interesting. Generally, that means it's a good patch. If everyone has different opinions on what's strongest and what's weakest, that's usually a good sign. But just to preface, I will say that I do think this is by far the most balanced patch we've had since probably 5.4, where PP Overflow was introduced. I really don't think anything's too crazy overwhelming. The one thing that people do think is overwhelming is like water, right? But I can't personally put water in S tier because in my own opinion, water is really, really good. but it is 100% carried by just a few key units, the most absurd one being the drizzle line, and it's also carried by AP items being so good. So like, water without spoons really doesn't perform that great. It's like top 3. Water without sobble and spoons is like top 4, top 5 all day, right? So I'll put it at the top of A. I really don't know that anything gets S tier for me this patch. I think everything's getting very close to balanced. I mean, there's things that need a little bit of work, certain units and stuff, and a couple synergies took some pretty large hits and are pretty bad, but for overall. And I'll also say that a large portion of this tier list is going to be a bit of prediction based on the changes that were made without actually having seen them played outside of other people playing them. So some things could definitely be wrong. It's early in the patch to be making this tier list prediction. So, but some of these things are also just experience and seeing enough evidence to back up the findings. So I think water takes it as the overall big winner across, all elos, across every game, as being, I think you can top 4 every game playing water. And I think it's the most likely to high roll easily and get top 1s that are very hard to stop. For synergies that I think are performing badly, I think sound is probably the worst one at the moment by far. Losing Full Baby was crazy. Meloetta being no longer a Force Legendary is quite a big hit. I really think sound is down here. Full Baby being the main reason. I think it's going to take at least a couple patches for people to figure out how to play sound effectively without that. Also, Baby 7 being worse now actually hurts sound as well. Baby is also in a rough spot. A lot of people are complaining, but people have this habit of, as soon as something that's stupidly OP and way overperforming takes even the slightest hit, they immediately say, oh, it's trash. So you can't really give too much credit to that, in my opinion, especially if you're not testing it out yourself. Baby, I think it's going to be the bottom of B tier. If I'm going to put sound in C tier, I might move it down to here if there's anything else I put there. But for now, we're going to say bottom of B tier. I think Baby is still more than playable, both Baby 3 and Baby 7 strategies. I just think you actually have to use a little bit of logic instead of booga booga, get 4 shiny items and insta win, So other big winners of the last patch, and really a couple patches, I think Field's going to be right up here. My personal opinion, Field might be stronger than Water, especially if like Sobble and Kyogre ever take some decent nerfs. Field will definitely be over Water, or if AP in general ever gets nerfed. I think Field will definitely outpace it. I'm going to put it just below for now, because I do think across all elos, across all games, I think people are going to struggle to play Field compared to Water, but it's very, very close in my opinion. Depending on how the rest of this goes, I even might move both of these to S tier just to show that I think they are a little bit ahead of pretty much all the rest. I think Flying is probably pretty well up here. Gaining the Ultra and Talonflame is just super, super good. Flying can also be a pretty decent counter to some of these like casting comps, where you can kind of assassinate the backline with some of your fodder units. Fossil, not quite the assassin scenario, but you do get the Revive with increased attack, which really does help to kill some of these casting bursty type comps. So I think Fossil has become pretty much a favorite right now. As far as like AD meta goes, I think these two are the main ones that make sense. Fire is also not bad, but I think it's either bottom of A or even B. I honestly think I'm going to put these up here. Let me see. I think let's go with what's not doing too hot right now. I don't think normal is very good at the moment. I don't know. I don't know that it's worse than Baby. I guess to give a little bit of extreme, we're going to move these down here. I think it'd be more like this, more realistically, to be honest. But yeah, I think normal took some big hits. I think you can certainly still win with it. I think it's still a good opener. But in terms of late game board power, you took a couple big hits with Ultras, and both Altaria and Lopunny. So I don't see it as being that great. You can combine it with fighting and sound at like 2 to 4, or even up to 6. And that makes a pretty stellar comp. At that point, it's not just vertical normal or even like a typical normal comp necessarily. It's not normal providing most of the value in that scenario. So yeah, or at least not normal units usually. Fighting I think is pretty solid right now. I think we're going to put this in A tier. But when and also Ground and Rock both got some pretty decent buffs. I actually think I like Rock a lot. Rock Monster is just crazy. Rock Ice is also crazy. I'll put it like here's fine. But anytime you have synergies like these performing very well, you also get Steel performing quite well. I do think Steelix, losing Steelix hurts Steel a bit, and I don't think Steel is honestly all that amazing at the moment, but a lot of people are talking about it, really love it. Then again, Mr. Crabhammer himself did just take a top 6 the other day trying to play Steel after talking about how great it was. And I mean, I don't know. I personally, I think it's here. Last patch, I might have even put it here, but I think it's up to here now since the defensive comps are doing quite a bit better. Ghost did come down a peg. It went from like high A, low S, down to probably low A or high B. Yeah, you lost Shop-It. Ghastly is made to be more of a carry in Ghost, but doesn't really do much outside of that, and you can't silence. Oh, yeah, we're gonna put it like here. Dark, I think, is pretty much the same as it was last patch. I mean, it took a large nerf, but people, like always, are over dramatic about what the hits are. And then some people, like, Torch still has this S tier. I don't think this was S tier last patch, but that's just my opinion. I think Dark's still fine. I think it's still just a whatever comp. Like, you could absolutely play it. The crit damage really, I don't think, affects it all that much, to be honest. I think the Ghost nerfs actually hurt it more than the crit damage nerfs. But I build Razorfang when I play Dark anyway, so maybe that's why. I think Fire's still pretty low here. I do think I'd probably play Fire over Ghost at this point with Talonflame. Talonflame helped out Fire quite a bit. It maybe should even be A at this point. It does have Litten now as well. Like, Fire Field's super good right now. But just base Fire by itself, I think I'd put it like here. I don't know that I would opt to play Ghost over Fire at this point. Grass. A lot of people think Grass is OP, really love Grass. I really don't like Grass that much at the moment. Like, I love playing Grass, but I really don't think it's that strong. And, like, actually strong lobbies in terms of trying to top 1. I think it's usually good for a top 4 most games. But I don't think it's good for much more than that. Like, you lose versus Water, you lose versus Field. Probably lose versus Flying, Fossil. Fighting just depends on itemization. Yeah, I honestly think Grass is like not that amazing at the moment. Flora tends to go with Grass, but Flora is still pretty goated in terms of, like, if you play Grass Flora, it is still usually pretty easy to top 4 versus just Grass by itself. But we'll still put it with Grass. I think it just goes together. You played it as a vertical synergy, it's honestly about the same strength. Human is a big winner this patch. Some people are putting Human up here. I think that's absurd. I'm not that sold on TMs and HMs. I think they're really cool, but I don't think they're quite that insane. You do get increased healing, but you lost team-wide healing. I don't know. For me, I gotta do more testing with TMs and HMs. I really think people are mistaking that Human is carrying when really it's Fighting carrying. Fighting or Psychic. You know, scaling an AP. I think people are also sleeping on Human Psychic at the moment. I think for me, I think Human's probably going like solid B tier. Yeah, probably solid B tier. I don't see it being all that amazing. I'll put it top of B. Ice, I think anytime AP comps are super high, Ice also has to be decently high at this point with the amount of buffs it's gotten. And also getting the new Ultra, open it out quite a lot. But then again, there's plenty of times that Water boards are just beating Ice boards. And also Water just combines with Ice so easily that it makes it kind of hard just to play vertical Ice, especially if you play vertical Ice and face a Fossil board or a Dark board or Steel, or even Ground Rock. Like, you're probably just going to lose. Here, I think is pretty fair. Light Synergy. I think Light Synergy is actually performing quite well at the moment, especially with the new Shinx. I would heavily consider Light Game a lot of times. Probably over me considering a Ground or Rock game, to be honest. Yeah, that's probably it. Monster's always been a funky one where, like, it is side synergy, but you can scale out of control. I still wouldn't play it vertically. Beginning Rhyhorn is actually a huge buff to any monster comps, in my opinion. If you're playing vertically, I think it's still probably down here in bottom B. But in terms of, like, as a synergy, like as a side synergy or secondary synergy, I think it's actually really good. Put it like right here. Like, if you do like Water with Monster 2, Kyogre or something even, like it kind of goes crazy. Poison is Poison. I think it's pretty easy to crush low elo lobbies with this. You're in a good lobby and they know how to build, you know, anti-CC. I think it's usually like a top 5 for you. I'll put it in B tier though. I don't know that I can put it over normal, honestly. It just seems bad. I don't think I can put it over normal. Psychic. Psychic is still super strong, but it is in a little bit of a weird spot while we're having to figure out new strategies because of the Curlia change. Where Curlia now has a 2-second delay. That change is very much felt when you try to play Psychic. It's not as simple as using that as a carry anymore. But I still think Psychic is pretty well busted, especially if you're using it as like a Dawnstone on a different synergy, like as a secondary synergy. Fairy is quite okay, and that's about it. So I'd probably put it about here. It's kind of an auto attacker synergy. I think I'd rather play Steel over Fairy still. It's good, but it's not like amazing. Like you can win a game with it, but it's not you'll have some tough matchups for sure. It still feels a little rough. Electric, I think, is actually really, really good still. I think I should probably put it by light. Would I rather play just electric or light? Probably just light. I'll probably put it over here. A good spot for it. Electric's really nice. Pairs nicely with so many strong synergies. And dragons. Alright. Dragons are an interesting one because they're really not much worse off than they... Well, Altaria for in-game boards was definitely better than Baxcalibur. Baxcalibur is definitely interesting, especially with water being so prevalent. Getting the team-wide special defense is really nice. But with how much people hyper-roll right now, I think Dragons is probably going to be B tier. I don't know that I could put Human over it though. I think it's going to be top of B tier. Like, Dragons are always solid in my opinion, especially with how well it pairs with both Ice and Water and Fossil, Flying, even Psychic. Dragons are just super good still, I think. Bug, playing Vertical Bug, I think that's just throwing. I mean, you can definitely do it, but I think Vertical Bug goes low-key below Poison. I think I would play Patches before I played Vertical Bug. Aquatic, definitely a side synergy. Vertical Aquatic is horrible. It's a useful side synergy. It goes here, just because it is a side synergy. Not that it's bad to have it. Like, Aquatic 2 to 4 is great, but like, if you have a Fluffy Tail already or a couple of cleanse tags, like, it's really not that necessary. And there's other side synergies that are generally better, in my opinion. Like, this isn't a super CC heavy meta, I don't think, especially after like ghost nerfs and stuff. But I think Aquatic's not quite as good. Artificial, I think, is at an all-time low point since I've been playing. So when you get it, I mean, it's still strong, it's still artificial, but you rely so much on additional pick, and it's just, I feel like, so inconsistent and quite a bit risky at this point. I'm honestly going to put it bottom of B tier. Yeah, I don't know if I should put it below normal or over normal. I think we'll put bottom of B tier. I think that's fine. Wild, I think, is doing quite well. I think this counters a lot of the popular AP comps at the moment. Definitely, I don't know, it's not something I enjoy playing. But I think if you're going to play Dark in order to counter Water, playing Wild Dark is just a better version of just playing Dark. So I do understand the merit. I'll put her about right here. And then Amorphous. I think Amorphous is still super good. Amorphous goes up here in A tier. Still super, super good to run. I'd honestly, Flying might go like right here, to be honest. Honestly, it might even go below Fighting. Fighting just kind of counters everything except for literally just true damage, basically. You know, not really being much of an AD meta. You don't see too much true damage. Like, Steel isn't super popular. Artificial being less consistent also hurts Steel pivots, and then like Red Orbs honestly aren't even really crafted that much on a lot of boards. So I think Fighting might even be better than Flying at the moment. I think that changes quite easily if the people in your lobby itemize right. In terms of just winning like an average game, I think Fighting's probably just a little bit better. Doesn't rely on rolling quite as much. And also, you know, you got the new legendaries and stuff. Like, I think it's pretty good. Plus, you got the human rework. You got Infernape available in a lot of areas to give you a really clear early direction to go. And you did lose Lopunny, but you have the new Ultra with the pillar. Like, I don't know. I think Fighting's up there. Again, I don't like putting these two at S tier. It feels a bit disingenuous to have it like a whole tier. I think it's more like a third of a tier separation, because it's really just a couple units for Water that are like overtuned. It's really just a few combinations of field that are overtuned. Then the most recent buff was quite good for it. Yeah, I guess this feels a little bit more right. Like I said, it's really just a couple units, especially with Water. I think Ground is probably still A tier. Maybe I can bump it down to top of B. I do think the rest of these are just a cut above. Maybe something like this. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense to me. Same with here. I think normal might still be B tier, bottom of B tier. I'm still playing babies over poison. I do think they're a bit weak at the moment, but they were way too OP last time. I could see them going bottom of B. Like, I think that's a fair assessment, but I can also understand the argument for them being here. I think sound is probably the worst synergy this by far, losing full baby. But again, part of this is just prediction. Like, this is stuff that needs to be tested, needs to be felt out by the community. We'll see how this goes. I'm going to lock in with this. But again, overall, I think this is easily the most balanced patch we've had in like 5 months, 5 patches or so. Yeah, overall, I'm super happy with the patch. Keldon Curry, thank you for all your hard work on it, as well as all the other devs and artists who contribute to the game. And thank you to everyone watching. Let me know what you thought of the tier list. If you liked it, hated it, if you would change things, if you disagree, let me know why. We'll see how it goes over the course of this patch. Thanks for watching. Remember, always gamble and always take the bait.